and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Board of Health met on March 9th for a special session to discuss the Health Department's part-time employee pay structure. Health Department Director Lori Kelly shared the changes with the board.
Coming into the position, in my opinion, when I started to look at the pay differences between the part-time employees and the full-time employees, it appeared to me that there was some pay inequity. In an attempt to try to close the gap that currently exists, I wanted to work on a draft that is a more formal part-time pay structure that will help to outline over the course of an employee's time here, what they can expect with salary increases, so that they can see from a comparative perspective how their part-time pay rate is more equitable to what the full-time employees are doing.
Board member Kate Leach asked Kelly if the reason for the variance in salaries is due to the lack of benefits for part-time employees. Kelly responded,
"That has not been my perspective. Currently, the part-time pay rates have been 14 to 20. Now that has raised for our department simply because of the nurse practitioner. So that increased that rate a little bit, but just because of her. So currently they are 14 to 20 for the part-time.
Board member Aurora Dawn DiOrio thanked Kelly for her work and said that she agrees the part-time employee wages should be raised.
I'm assuming your part-time people do really important work and you need them. And I wonder, without creating inequities with the full-time staff, but I think Kay's point is a good one. The part-time folks, if they don't get benefits, if you have the money and if you wanted to, you could up their hourly salary more. And so I guess I would like to say, if this is as good as we can do, I'm fine with it, but I would like to see everybody brought up more, because I think those are too low overall.
Kelly said that salaries in the department are lower than in surrounding counties.
I would say across the board for the entire department, all of our salaries are low, particularly compared to other counties. That number ranges, anywhere from $20,000 difference per year for full-time employees to, $50,000 for some positions. So I think that this is, I'm at least trying to get a good start because our part-time employees are incredibly valuable and we need to be able to retain them. They need to feel valued and appreciated. And they really should be getting a fair rate with the job duties they're doing, particularly when they're performing the same duties as a full-time employee.
DiOrio highlighted the importance of retaining these employees. She pointed out that the part-time employees are doing technical work that requires training, which is an investment they don't want to lose. DiOrio asked if there's an issue with the full-time employee salaries as well. Kelly confirmed that the full-time salaries are also lower than they should be. Board President Carol Tolukian said that the Monroe County Council is in charge of the budget and will have to approve of the changes.
Because the council is the one who sets the pay rates. Salaries were reviewed just a couple of years ago, like Tom said. I think within the range of what the job description is, you have a salary range, and I think you have some discretion in there. I think we all agree that part-time people should be paid the same hourly rate as full-time people. I think there's some variation because of longevity, and it might be that some of the full-time people have more seniority and longevity than some of the part-time people, which may make a big difference in salary range.
The next regular session of the Monroe County Board of Health will be held on April 27th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
Do you know that thousands of children go without school supplies every day? Teachers Warehouse is a 100% volunteer-powered organization. We service the educational and creative needs of students in Monroe, Brown, Greene, Lawrence, and Owen counties by distributing school supplies free to the teachers. Teachers Warehouse is composed of 7 rooms filled with books, pencils, paper, and even tools to motivate students. If it's in a classroom, we'll supply it. To donate new or gently used school supplies or volunteer, give us a call at 812-929-7522 or email us at contact@teacherswarehouse.net.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on March 8th, Health Department Director Lori Kelly gave an update on COVID-19 rates in the community and introduced a new at-home flu and COVID test she said will be available soon.
Still decreasing. And I do have some exciting news to share about a new test. This was recently authorized by the FDA. It is the first combination test for flu and coronavirus that can be performed at home. It's not yet available, but we expect it soon. It is a single test, and it takes about 30 minutes to process, and the results will show if a person is positive or negative for influenza A, influenza B, and or COVID.
Commissioner Penny Giffens asked if the test would be able to differentiate between the three viruses. Kelly said that it can.
Will it distinguish between the three different viruses?
Yes, so from my understanding is it will, and it will show positive or negative for each of those. So it would show if you are positive for example, influenza A and COVID, or just one.
Next, the commissioners heard from Director of Emergency Management, Jamie Nibel, who asked the commissioners to approve the purchase of a 12-month subscription to Salamander Technology to help their department keep track of their inventory.
So we're talking about assets like the disaster tents. So those tents, we already do a sort of tracking with the fleet maintenance. So they do things for preventative maintenance standpoint, but we're looking at things like the parts and pieces that go along with those tents. So the tent itself has different pieces that go along with it, like there is a floor, there's also a generator that goes along with it, there's lights, there's many different pieces that go with it. There's a trailer that goes with it as well. Whenever different entities want to use that tent for their purposes, we have to make sure that we get those pieces and parts back. We also have to make sure that we have accountability for the people that take those and use them and whenever they come back. Right now we have a paper process that could always be a little bit improved. Whenever you have an electronic accountability system, it helps keep track of those things a little bit better. So it also will help us keep track of PPE in real time. So there will be an app on our phone where we could be out in the field and be able to look at those things. So, you know, if we're not in our office with access to those paper process, we could look at those things in real time and be able to do those things right then and there, instead of having to say, oh, you need, you know, a case of N95 masks. Well, hang on a second, let me go back to my office and look at those things real quick, you know. So, and we'll be able to possibly partner with the health department. I've had conversations this week with the health department in, you know, helping with those tracking their assets as well. It can also keep track of expiration dates in real time.
The commissioners approved funding for the subscription unanimously. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At their meeting on March 8th, the Bloomington City Council heard a request from the Utilities and Public Works Departments to move their facilities to a new location. Director of Utilities Vic Kelson presented the request to the council.
We're proposing to build a new campus for the Utilities Department at Winston-Thomas. The history of that site is interesting. This was a wastewater treatment plant that was built in 1934. It served the city until the early 1980s when PCBs were found to be in plentiful abundance on the property. So we went through a number of years, discussions about incinerators and so forth during the cleanup phase. The site was on the national priorities list under the Superfund law for quite a long while, but it has now been really removed a number of years ago from the national priorities list, and it's available for redevelopment by the city.
Kelson explained that the move is being proposed because the Utilities Department has outgrown their current facility.
So why would we be wanting to find a new facility? The map you're looking at here shows the layout of the Miller Drive property. As you can see, the facility is completely full. CBU's facilities are completely full of vehicles. All our heavy equipment sits out in the rain out there, except for things like vacuum trucks that have water in them, so you have to store them indoors in the wintertime, which of course means that our garage, which is also undersized, is always crammed with vehicles at night. We also have only an outdoor storage yard with a small barn on it. So we have, if you drive down by the Winston Thomas property, you'll see a lot of things like corrugated culvert pipes and things like that sitting out there in the sunshine, uncovered in the grass because we don't have any place else to store them. So the idea is to put a utilities campus on the southern portion of the property. We would put a service center, a new garage, and a covered yard to protect our equipment.
Director of Public Works Adam Wason outlined where the Department of Public Works has facilities across town and shared his vision to have a centralized location for operations.
Just like Vic, we've got a lot of trucks and heavy equipment that aren't undercover, that aren't protected from the elements. But we make do. We've long made do, and we're proud of the efforts that we've had. It's been a vision of mine for some time since I've been with Public Works to have a centralized location where our staff could all reside. If this is to move forward, and hopefully does, we envision that the CBU administration building would then become home to all Public Works operations outside of the animal care and control facility. The idea of when I think about all of the efficiencies and the positives that could come from co-locating Public Works staff, it's just really tremendous. We would certainly be utilizing the CBU administration building, but then we'd have the opportunity to also re-envision a lot of the other space up there for how we could best use it. Basically, just to kind of wrap up my comments here, we're excited about a future where we could co-locate. We're excited about a future where we could gain those efficiencies. We know there are a lot of steps to take to get there, but this is really exciting for us in Public Works.
Council member Jim Sims asked if they regularly test for PCBs on the site. Kelson said that to his knowledge, they do not routinely test for PCBs, but he could find more information on testing for the site.
First of all, with regard to the PCBs that are encapsulated, do we test that area? How often do we do that to ensure that there's no leaching? And when was the last time was testing
we
done?
don't regularly test it. The places that are tested are all associated with the Westinghouse properties. But during my time at CBU, we haven't had occasion to go out and do testing at the facility.
Okay, so how do we know it's fully encapsulated? Do we just assume that?
I can look into that.
I'm just asking.
I can look into it further. The whole project was done under the auspices of the EPA, so it has been thoroughly investigated. But I will confirm whether we do testing or not.
Council member Isabel Piedmont Smith asked about financing for the project. Wason said that they plan to seek grant funding and negotiate funding between departments and the city.
Well, as Vic just said, there would obviously have to be an agreement in the transfer of the property to be a Public Works facility. Initially, costs that we would look to incur are some of the master planning of the site, but really, outside of additional storage facilities for the equipment that's currently outdoors, we would look to utilize what's there in terms of CBU's service center, their garages, some of the awnings. Part of that obviously gets determined in a master planning process for us is on that site, but the utility service center building right now, their parking lots, that would be an upgrade beyond belief for someone like me right now in terms of being able to take over a facility like that. It's, for those that haven't been in there, it's a modern office facility. It's got conference rooms. It's got a utilities service board room where the Board of Public Works could meet. Just when I think of all the things Public Works does, it could be a really great fit and, like I said, a really nice hand-me-down.
But it will cost money to move there.
Yes.
So is that something that is just projected to be put in the Public Works budget in coming years, or is there any bonding or other revenue sources to
some of that
pay for
gets
that?
determined long-term through the master planning of the site, what they would actually suggest for, what happens to the street department building. Do we not, street division building, is that demolished and not reused? Like I said, I imagine we would fully continue to use the fleet maintenance garage for a lot of the activities that occur there, but we're hoping to keep those costs to a minimal other than, the storage facilities for equipment and then reutilize what's on site. But yes, it would obviously be coming before the council, whether if it required bond funding or budget approval through the normal budget process. And again, as Vic mentioned, right now is a key time to be monitoring what grants and federal, what other dollars are out there. We just had a great conversation with several staff and outside an outside firm today on how we can better position ourselves for larger grant funding opportunities. And this is certainly one of those that's on the radar for that as well.
Sorry to keep harping on this, but the transfer of assets from CBU to the city, which is technically separate. So does that mean the city will have to pay for that facility in some way?
There would be, yes, that would have to be negotiated amongst the utility service board, and the two administration, the city administration, the utility service board, who owned the land originally. There's a lot to be determined there. Every few years, we're entering into interlocal agreements with CBU for different things, whether services, and I could see this being part of that conversation as well.
The Bloomington City Council will meet again on March 15th. At the Monroe County Community Justice Response Committee meeting on March 6th, Care Not Cage's member, Nicole Siegel, said she wants to see the committee make the current jail livable and up to constitutional standards.
My hope is that instead of doing anything towards building a new jail, you will have groups that are also focused on figuring out how the jail could be made livable, constitutional, and acceptable. By shrinking the population, by looking at the ways that the reasons people are in there can be addressed more directly. And the thing that I'm most interested in understanding is whether the administrative hold for other counties has to do with a fee-for-service situation. Are we taking people from other counties because the other counties pay us? Or are we doing that for a reason that has to do with something specific and unavoidable? It seems that it would be a very poor choice to build a new jail because we are housing people from other counties. And that has been, at times in some years, the greatest reason for incarceration in the Monroe County Jail. So I would like that addressed.
Director of Focus Initiatives, Justin Huerta, described his experience in the prison system for minor drug charges. He said that he does not believe locking people up is the answer.
All I really had to say was, I am one of the people that is directly affected by building new jails. I did 15 years in prison altogether, off and on the life installment plan, 4 years here, 3 years there, all for minor drug charges, nonviolent possessions and a dealing. Most drugs I've ever been caught with in my whole life is 10 grams, okay? Never once did the state say, maybe we should give this guy some type of drug treatment. The first answer was, we got to put him in prison. He got caught with this 3 grams, 4 grams of drugs, cocaine. We have to put him in prison. I did all that time there. Once I went to prison, it was different levels of trauma and brutality that I was exposed to on several different levels. I have seen what this happens firsthand. In 2020, I was released, and I'm not gonna be long-winded. In 2020, I was released, and I said, I'm never going back. I don't know how to make it out here, so I'm just gonna go to work, and I'm gonna come home. I'm gonna hide from the world. I'm not coming out. I did that for a few months until I met the people at Focus Initiatives who were referred to me and reached out to me. And they began to show me levels of compassion and show me levels of care. And it really affected me because I didn't know these people, and they really showed me some level of human interaction from people who said, hey, you're a valuable human being. Once I was constantly reinforced with this message, different things began to happen for me. Different things began to happen in my life. And now, 3 years later, which is like one of the longest times I've ever been released in the past 25 years. 3 years later, I'm here, I'm doing strong. I don't have any desire to go back in any direction. And I'm only more determined and more focused than ever to go forward and continue to pass on the things that I have learned. I just wanted my voice to be heard here, and I know it represents a lot of different people, that locking people up is not the answer. It only compounds and multiplies trauma. Trauma happens in prison. I know, can't nobody tell me anything different. I know, I've lived there. Once that trauma takes place, those mindsets are reinforced and founded in concrete. It becomes extremely difficult for a reversal to take place. I'm excited about SB1 bill, mental health services. That's what's needed. It's obvious at this point. That's what's needed. If we can take just fractions of those huge, enormous sums being spent on putting people in holes and locking them away from the sun and locking them away from the people who love and care about them the most. If we can come together as a community and show these people who need help that we care about them, I guarantee you that recidivism rates will have no choice but to be reduced, because I have abolished it in my own life with the help of people who show care and compassion. And I really want to thank this board for just letting me speak that and get that out. And I hope everybody takes that little nugget home and ponders it for a while.
President of the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus, Nicole Bolden, criticized the committee's conduct during recent meetings, particularly the way Sheriff Ruben Marte and Monroe County Council member Jennifer Crossley have been treated.
Over the last few months, our organization has watched these proceedings with increasing dismay and frustration. The reason for this frustration has been rooted in the particular treatment of Counselor Jennifer Crossley and Sheriff Ruben Marte. While all of the elected officials in this room have been, from time to time, treated in a manner that is less than ideal by their colleagues, Counselor Crossley and Sheriff Marte have been the direct recipients of a noticeably high number of sighs, eye rolls, muttered comments, direct disparagement, and cut-off statements. While I hope that it is not the intent of those engaging in this behavior to indicate any bias, the fact remains that the only 2 elected officials of color in this room have been treated to a high level of disrespect that does not track with the treatment of others in this room. We request that moving forward, you treat all of the officials in this room with the respect and shared humanity that we hope you are all capable of. And for those officials in this room who are not on the receiving end of poor behavior, we ask that you say something when you see it happening, rather than remaining silent for the sake of keeping the peace or sticking to parliamentary procedure. Some of you have asked for our support in the past. The way to retain that support is to be an ally to your colleagues. You do not have to agree with their statements, but you do have to refuse to allow them to be treated with disrespect. Thank you for your time.
Next, the Monroe County Commissioners shared their goals and vision for the committee. Commissioner Julie Thomas said she wants to provide better treatment and reduce recidivism in the criminal justice system.
In a nutshell, our goal is to prevent and limit incidents of incarceration. For those who are incarcerated, we want a more humane facility, one that allows for programming and release reentry planning. Speedier judicial processing and treatment is key. Mental health, substance use disorder treatment, physical treatment as well. If a person is incarcerated, we want to reduce or prevent recidivism, which does require a reform of the criminal justice process. We do want to provide programming and treatment, and we want to ensure that transitional housing is available throughout the community to ensure reentry and success and to prevent recidivism. We continue to have questions raised. Every question is important, but we have to remain focused on our goal, a speedy, not hasty, but efficient and effective development of a new facility. And it's important that we move forward. And Ken Falk has reminded us of this. Sheriff Marte has reminded us of this. He was on the show on Friday and mentioned this. We need to move forward. That doesn't mean we don't continue to provide our role as landlord of the building. It doesn't mean that we say, you know, no repairs, no whatever. It just means that we need to get planning and get moving in an expeditious, not hasty manner.
The CJRC will host their next meeting at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, March 20th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.